Hey guys, tonight's story isn't about survival. Not really. Because surviving hell, that's just the beginning. We've all heard of Dante's Inferno. 9 circles of sin, punishment, fire. But what if you made it through? What if you crawled out of the pit, ash in your lungs, your soul cracked but intact, only to find that what's waiting for you back in the world is not peace, it's something older, wiser, and still watching. This isn't just a descent. It's what happens after the fire. So take a breath, if it still feels like yours, and listen closely, because something followed you out of hell, and it has wings. So before you get too cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You wake up with ash in your lungs. It's not the sting that surprises you, it's the weight. It sinks deeper than your breath, nestling behind your ribs like something earned. You cough once, twice, and then stop, because coughing reminds you you're still alive, and that doesn't feel like a comfort. The earth is quiet. That's the first sign something is wrong. Not just quiet, hollow. The kind of silence that wraps around your ankles and whispers to the bones, you don't belong here. The trees are the same shape they were before, but their shadows fall too far. The wind moves, but it doesn't touch you. You were supposed to die down there. The river Styx should have pulled you under. The glutton's mire should have swallowed you whole. Satan himself should have sealed the ice above your head. But instead, you crawled free, scarred, staggering, stinking of smoke and salt and judgment. You climbed out of hell. You felt the shift in gravity when you passed back through. You should have felt relief. But the first thing you noticed was that the air didn't forgive you. You stand now in a world that calls itself safe. Birds chirp. A plane cuts across the sky. People laugh somewhere you cannot see. But nothing feels human anymore. Your ears twitch at things no one else hears. Groans that echo through metal vents. Screams buried beneath engine noise. Your skin reacts to shadows that pass too quickly. You sleep with your hands closed around nothing, but wake up sore, like they've been clutched around something fighting to get free. No one looks at you the same. They smile, but there's distance behind their eyes, like they can smell something wrong. You try to speak about what you saw, about the circles, about the sins, about the devil's frozen jaws, but your voice shrinks inside your throat. It knows better than to tempt their understanding. What you carry isn't meant for other people, because something followed you out. You first feel it in your spine, a weight that pulses behind your neck, almost like breath. But it doesn't inhale, it watches. You try to turn your head, but it flickers always behind the edge of your sight, like heat on pavement. It doesn't walk, it waits, and it never blinks. At night, your dreams crack. You fall upward instead of down. Your feet try to find floor but strike only air. The stars are wrong in these dreams. They twitch, they shift. One of them peels open, and inside is not light. Inside is a face made of fire and wings and eyes. It does not speak, it just knows. When you wake, your pillow is damp with sweat. Your hands bleed from where your fingernails dug too deep. And once, just once, you find a single white feather resting on your chest. But it isn't soft. It's heavy, metallic, etched in something older than language. You bury it. You don't know why, but your heart thuds a little faster when your fingers touch the dirt. You should have died in hell. You were not meant to emerge, not unbroken, not seen, not chosen. But now you feel it, like a heartbeat beneath the earth. a presence that was waiting at the threshold, patient and endless. And it did not stop you. It welcomed you. You walk through a world that should feel safe, but it doesn't. The streets remember you now. You step past the same cracked pavement you once called ordinary, but it no longer pretends to be neutral. Every power line buzzes with a hum you can't unhear. Every street lamp flickers like it's trying to speak. At first, you tell yourself it's nothing. That trauma plays tricks. That smoke inhalation rewires the nerves. But the lie doesn't hold long. Not when the shadows move before the wind does. Not when reflections in windows lag behind. Just a beat slower than your body. Something is off. The world saw what you did, and it can't unsee it either. Your bones still carry the resonance of that place. You can feel the inferno tremble beneath your skin, as if your marrow remembers the screams better than your ears do. They come back at night. Sometimes in your dreams, sometimes when you're wide awake, brushing your teeth or waiting for a crosswalk. It's not a scream anymore. Not exactly. It's more like pressure. Like being inside the throat of something about to cry out again. The faces never left you. Lust, gluttony, greed. Each circle had its own shape of suffering, and you memorized them without meaning to. The lovers tumbling in eternal wind. The swollen bellies writhing in rot. The cold eyes of traitors sealed in ice. You close your eyes on the bus and see them mouthing your name like they remember you too. You're not sure how far from hell you really are, because even in this daylight, the world feels bent, like it's trying to stand straight but can't quite manage. Roads curve where they shouldn't. Alleyways feel longer when you walk out than when you walked in. One time you passed the same man 3 times on the same block. Same coat, same limp, same blink. He didn't notice you, but you noticed him. You turned and left. You didn't look back. People sense it, even if they don't say it. Conversations die when you enter the room. Strangers fumble their words around you, as if something's pressing on their tongues. Children stare too long. Dogs don't bark anymore. They whimper. The world hasn't rejected you, not entirely, but it's wary now, like it recognizes a survivor from a place no one returns from. And the worst part is the quiet. Not silence, not really, but that gap between sounds, that breath between breaths. It stretches now, elongates. You'll be walking through the market, and suddenly the noise will collapse around you, and for a split second, everything stops. You're alone. You're exposed, and something is listening. You try to reach out. You text friends. You ask to meet, but they flake, or get sick, or stop responding entirely. You scroll through photos and feel like you're watching a stranger's life. None of them know what you saw. None of them understand that you didn't just survive hell. You changed shape inside it. And sometimes you catch yourself whispering. Not words, just a sound, a rhythm, a pulse that isn't yours. You hear it coming from the back of your throat, like a memory trying to escape. You bite your tongue to stop it. It tastes like ash. You know something's watching. Not in the sense of paranoia, not metaphor. Real, present. Eyes you cannot see, wings you cannot comprehend. Something ancient that saw you leave hell and didn't stop you. Not because it couldn't, because it was waiting for you. You try to return to what you knew, the streets you grew up on, the friends you left behind, the quiet routines that once made you forget how fragile life was. You drink your coffee from the chipped blue mug. You sit on the same park bench. You listen to the same playlist that used to numb you just enough. But nothing tastes the same. Nothing sounds right. Nothing stays where it belongs. You notice it first in the sky. It's subtle at first. The way the clouds seem too still, like they're holding their breath. The sun sets in the right place but lingers longer than it should, dripping red into the horizon like blood from a cracked lip. You try to blame it on pollution or memory, or something else you can Google. But you can't explain how the sky feels deeper than it used to, like it's no longer space, it's a mouth. And at night, the stars are wrong. You can't prove it. There are still constellations, still familiar pinpricks scattered above you like shattered glass, but some are missing, or new ones have arrived. You don't remember that crooked arc above the neighbor's rooftop. You don't remember that cluster that pulses like a heartbeat. And one night, you stare too long, and one of them blinks. Not a twinkle, not a trick of the atmosphere. It closes and then opens, and you realize you've been seen. Since that night, the sky watches you. You feel it every time you step outside. That stillness, that weight. It's in the way birds fly in strange spirals before disappearing. It's in the way planes vanish into clouds that weren't there a moment ago. You squint at the sun too long one morning and swear you see something pass in front of it. Not a bird, not a plane. Something massive. Something with form but no shape. Something that moves like thought. The air is heavier now. Your lungs work harder to pull in breath, like the atmosphere is thickening around you. It makes your chest feel tight. It makes your vision blur at the edges. People around you cough more often. Complain about migraines, but no one looks up. No one says anything about the hum you've started to hear. Low and constant, like a far-off engine that never shuts down. It isn't loud, but it's always there. You hear it in your teeth. You go to the library one day and pull out books you never cared for before. Astronomy, angelology, ancient texts. No one checks out anymore. The librarian gives you a strange look, but says nothing. You trace the patterns of Ezekiel's visions and compare them to the star maps, the wheels of fire, the eyes within eyes, the firmament. You wonder if it's metaphor. You hope it's metaphor. But deep down, you know, what you saw in hell was not the end. It was an introduction, a breaking open, a stripping away of ignorance. And what waits above you now is not wrath. It's revelation. The kind that doesn't come down with fire and thunder, but with silence and precision. The kind that studies before it speaks. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself, because it already knows what you are. And now you know it sees you. You smell smoke where there is no fire. Not the sharp bite of burning wood, not the acrid sting of gasoline. This smoke is older, sweeter, somehow, like incense soaked in thunder. It clings to the corners of rooms and seeps from the mouths of vents. You check the oven, you check the outlets. You breathe it in and try to tell yourself it's nothing, just the ghost of memory following you home. But it never fades. If anything, it's growing stronger. You first notice the sound when the city is asleep. That hour just before dawn when traffic stills and the sky hasn't decided what color it wants to be. It begins low, like iron bending under pressure. A distant, rhythmic creak. Then it shifts, deepens, becomes something that shouldn't belong to this world. Movement not made by gears or lungs, but by intention. You freeze beneath it, not because it's loud, but because it feels like it's not meant to be heard. You hear wings before you see them, not the fluttering kind, not feathered, not alive in any way you understand. These wings move like machines taught to mimic something divine, metal grinding against itself with reverence, vast and precise. They don't flap, they fold. And when they do, the sky changes shape. The ground hums beneath your feet. You stand barefoot in the kitchen one night and feel it. A vibration running through the tile, faint but deliberate, like breath held too long, like the world is about to exhale. You place your hand against the wall and it pulses beneath your fingers. Once, then again, a rhythm, a heartbeat. You step outside, driven by something you don't recognize as curiosity. The wind has stilled, but the trees sway anyway. Clouds churn slowly, too slowly, like they're waiting for instructions. The stars do not twinkle tonight. They glow steady and cold, and in their midst, something darker moves, a shadow that erases light rather than blocks it. You can't tell how far away it is, or how close. It doesn't obey distance. And then it turns. Not toward you, not away from you, just enough to let you feel it's aware. You fall to your knees before you realize your legs have given up. Your hands tremble against the concrete. You aren't afraid in the normal way. This isn't fear. This is reverence sharpened into panic. Something sacred brushing too close to flesh. You feel like an uninvited guest in your own dimension. Above you, the sky splits, not with sound, but with understanding. You don't hear a voice. You feel one, a knowing that presses behind your eyes, filling your skull with light and weight. You try to cry, but the tears burn like they've been soaked in oil. You try to pray, but your tongue forgets how to form the name. You see the outline now. Not a creature, not a god, something between. Rings of fire spinning within, rings of glass, alive with motion that makes no sense. Eyes within the fire, wings within the eyes, and behind it all, the impression of a face, not one you can describe, but one you'll never unsee. It doesn't move toward you. It waits. You stumble backward, gasping like you've surfaced from a deep dive. Your mouth tastes like smoke. The grass beneath your feet is singed in a perfect circle. No one else sees it. No one else smells it. You walk back inside and close the door behind you, but the silence stays cracked. Something has opened. Something has taken notice. And it has wings made of purpose. The wind moves like thought. Not the kind that drifts, but the kind that arrives. Fully formed. Certain. Impossible to ignore. It circles before it touches you, curling through alleyways and bending around buildings with too much intention. Leaves don't scatter, they align. Doors don't creak, they pause. Everything listens. You notice it when the world forgets how to be ordinary. When trees don't sway with the breeze but lean toward a center that keeps shifting. The air feels thinner one moment, then thick with presence the next. It presses behind your ears like altitude sickness, but you're still at sea level. You stop checking weather apps. You stop asking people if they feel it too. They don't. Or they've forgotten how to say they do. It happens again near the corner deli. The one you never liked, but always passed. You're halfway through the crosswalk when the world drops into silence. No cars, no horns. Just wind. Slow at first, then faster, then so precise it begins tracing your silhouette. You feel it drag across your skin like fingers, learning your shape. It doesn't whip your clothes or scatter your hair. It studies you. You try to move, but your limbs refuse the signal. Not paralyzed exactly, just overwritten. You blink, and the wind shifts again. It curls in front of you, lifting dust from the pavement and suspending it midair. The particles spin into shapes, trying to form letters. You don't recognize the language, but your body does. Your bones flinch like they remember. The wind speaks, not in sound, but in sensation. It hums with memory, your memory, places you haven't thought about in years. The smell of your mother's coat, the feeling of that childhood fever, that second heartbeat you felt once, briefly, when you were alone in a hospital room and the machines all flickered for no reason. The wind collects them, lays them out like offerings. You feel known in a way that strips the skin. It knows your name before you can remember it yourself. Not the one you write on forms, the other one. The one buried beneath all the pretending. It drags that name to the surface, and you feel it settle behind your eyes. Heavy, final, yours. You don't run. You can't. Not because you're trapped, but because something deeper tells you it would be disrespectful. This is not weather. This is not force. This is presence. Alive, watching, waiting. The kind of attention you only ever felt once. On the edge of hell, when something opened its gaze and measured the weight of your soul without judgment, only precision. And the wind remembers. It carries voices with it, ones you thought were long gone. They don't speak in full words, but you hear the intonation of people you've lost. A laugh, a cry, a whisper that only makes sense to you. The wind makes no effort to comfort. It simply reveals. That's worse. It makes you honest. Then, just as suddenly as it came, it leaves. Not with a rush, but a fade. The dust falls. The world resumes. A car horn blares in the distance. A door slams. Someone jogs past you, unaware that time bent and bled just inches from where they stood. You touch your chest like you expect something to be missing, or added. You look to the sky, and the clouds don't move. Because now, the wind is inside you, quiet, waiting. And you realize something terrifying. You are not alone in your thoughts anymore. You don't fall asleep. You are taken. There's no drifting, no drowsiness. Just a blink that doesn't reopen. The kind of blink that happens when you look into something too bright, too deep, and your body forgets it was ever yours. One moment you're sitting at your kitchen table, staring at the steam rising from your untouched tea. The next, your feet are planted in fire. But your body is not burning. The flames twist around your ankles like they know you, not consuming, cleansing. They don't bite, they judge. Every flicker peels back something hidden, something you buried beneath excuses and stories you told yourself. You feel them lifting pieces of you into the air like ashes, sifting through them. Your soul is burning, not screaming, not even resisting, just unraveling. As if some part of you always knew this moment would come. The part that woke up from dreams of glass wings and wheels of light. The part that stood too long in front of mirrors and felt a presence looking back that wasn't reflection. That part is quiet now, because this fire is not punishment. It is revelation. You try to speak, to ask what this is, but your voice has no sound here. Words are too small. Intent is everything, and your intent is being weighed, not by hands, not even by eyes, but by will, immense, focused, beyond anything human. Something watches you from behind the fire, not with sight, with knowing. You are not afraid. You should be. But fear doesn't belong here. There is no room for it, only truth. And the truth is that your soul carries more than you admitted. It's not just sin that weighs you down. It's the cracks where light should be, the mercy you denied yourself, the rage you held too long, the softness you buried to survive. All of it glows now, visible in the heat. And something responds. It does not speak. It unfolds. From above, behind, within, space, tears without tearing, and presence arrives. You can't name what you see. Light that isn't light, shape that doesn't obey form. Rings moving through rings, wings layered over wings, all turning inward and outward at once. Every motion hums with memory, with intent, with recognition. You realize too late. You weren't called here. You were pulled. Your soul gave off a signal when it left hell, a flicker, a noise. And this, being heard it didn't summon you. It claimed you, not as prey, not as savior, as something else entirely. Something that doesn't belong where you are. Something that must now be changed. You feel yourself lifted, not upward, but inward. Your breath stops, not from pain, but because there's no need for breath anymore. What's rising isn't your body, it's what you've always been beneath it. And that part of you is opening like a sealed door. You see yourself, truly, for the first time. And it breaks you, because what you are is not simple, not noble, not damned. You are fractured light. You are holy and horrible, stitched together with choices and silence and things you never dared name. And whatever watches you now is not disappointed. It is patient. Then the fire recedes. Not gone, just returned to wherever it waits. You open your eyes and find yourself standing in your living room, tea cold, untouched. But your chest glows faintly with heat that won't fade. Something inside you has been marked, not possessed, not blessed, aligned. And though no words were spoken, you understand what's been asked of you. Nothing and everything. The ground is made of eyes. You don't notice it first. It looks like stone, like the kind that lines ancient temple floors, cracked, worn, dusted with age. But then it shifts, just slightly. A ripple that shouldn't belong to rock. You take a step, and something twitches beneath your foot. You freeze. Not from fear, but from the feeling of being seen, not watched, seen, known. You crouch and brush your hand across the surface. It's warm, not from sun, but from awareness. The grit that clings to your fingers is too fine to be sand, too smooth to be soil. You lean closer, and for a moment, you think you see a pattern. Circular ridges, deep in the stone, like carvings. Then one of them blinks. You fall back, not because it startles you, but because it responds. You didn't just observe it, it observed you back. The air holds steady around you, silent but dense, as if the space itself is bracing for something. You glance around. The horizon doesn't exist here. There is no sky, no sun, just infinite ground stretching in every direction, rippling faintly with motion you can't predict. The dust stares. It clings to your legs as you walk, not like static, but like thought. You feel it gathering on your skin, not heavy, but deliberate. Each grain presses gently against your pores as if tasting you. You try to shake it off. It clings tighter. It isn't following you. It's learning. You kneel and press your palm to the floor again, this time with intent. Something shifts beneath you, 1,000 minuscule muscles flexing just under the surface. More eyes open. All around. Wide. Silent. Watching with the quiet violence of understanding. Not angry. Not pleased. Just processing. You are being read. Not your face. Not your clothes. Not even your thoughts. Deeper. Older. You feel it scanning the layers of your being, peeling away memories like soft bark. It watches the day you lied to protect someone and the day you lied to harm them. It sees your smallest cruelties, your most private kindnesses, all of it, not to punish, to weigh. You are being judged, but not by a law you recognize. There's no sense of right or wrong here, only alignment. Are you what you were meant to be? Have you betrayed your shape? These eyes do not care if you sinned. They care if your soul matches the weight of its choices. And right now, you are not balanced. You feel it in your chest first. A tightening, like a rope pulled taut between your ribs. The eyes press inward without moving. The ground beneath you begins to rise in slow, undulating waves, like breath drawn through stone. It cradles you, not to comfort. To cradle is not always an act of love. You kneel, not because you're told to, but because standing feels dishonest. Something deep beneath the surface opens. Not a voice, not a mouth, a will. It brushes against your consciousness like a gust through a door long sealed. You don't hear words, but you understand. You have not been claimed. You have been measured, and you are still becoming. The dust falls away as you rise, eyes closing in waves behind you, like a tide receding. You feel raw, exposed in a way that has nothing to do with nudity. You do not know where to go next. But you know one thing for certain. You cannot walk this ground again unchanged. The voice is not a voice. It does not enter your ears. It does not pass through the air. There is no sound, no vibration, no breath carried between syllables. Instead, it arrives in your blood, thick and sudden, like a memory you never lived. It blooms behind your eyes, and every part of you tightens with the instinct to listen, not because it demands obedience, but because resistance feels like a betrayal of something far older than fear. You kneel before you understand why. Not out of reverence, not even submission. You kneel because something inside you remembers how. The bones in your legs bend as if guided. Your hands find the earth like magnets drawn to some forgotten axis. There is no ceremony in it, no prayer, just the gravity of presence. Something ancient has entered the space around you and within you. It speaks, not in words, but in knowing. Truth is not conveyed, it is implanted. The thoughts do not unfold in sequence. They are complete, total, absolute. You do not interpret, you receive. And the first truth it presses into your mind is this: you have already been changed. You try to respond, to think back, but your thoughts are small things. They scatter like birds before a storm. The knowing that speaks to you does not wait for your understanding. It continues, without urgency, without pause. It shows you a shape, not with light, but with intent. A wheel, burning and unburned. A face with no mouth, no eyes, yet nothing hidden. A multitude in one. All direction, all motion, all stillness. You are given the understanding that this is not what it is. This is simply what your mind can survive. You begin to tremble, not because it threatens you, but because you realize it could erase you with a thought, not out of malice, but out of misalignment. If you failed to fit the shape it required, you would vanish like steam from warm stone. But you are not erased. You are being shaped. Every moment of your past unspools behind your closed eyes. But they are not memories. They are components. You see your mistakes reframed as hinges, your losses reassembled as binding threads, your cruelties placed like balancing weights. You are not being judged for what you have done. You are being calibrated. And still, the voice, that not voice, presses closer. It does not whisper. It does not shout. It presses. It reveals. And in its wake, you feel smaller, but not worthless. No, you feel placed, like a puzzle piece, finally understanding the emptiness of the space it was meant to fill. There is a design beneath everything, and for the first time, you see its outline. It terrifies you, because it means you were never lost. You rise not of your own will, but because the moment has shifted. The knowing recedes, but not entirely. Some of it remains embedded in your mind, like coals in cooled ash, waiting to be fanned into meaning. You open your eyes to a world that looks the same, but no longer feels shared. You hear nothing, but the silence vibrates with memory. You walk forward, not knowing where you're going, only that you must, because something is listening through you now. They are not flying, they are unfolding. At first, the sky looks empty, too empty. A stillness that isn't peace, but anticipation. Then something shifts, not above, but behind reality. A seam opens, not with sound, with release. Like something that had always been there simply stopped hiding. The air grows heavy, not with pressure, but with purpose. You feel it in your knees before your mind catches up. They do not descend. They emerge. Limbs without number spiral outward, each one braided with flame and movement. They don't flap, they articulate. Each motion precise, measured like calligraphy drawn in space. Eyes blink in places that shouldn't hold eyes. Within joints, between wings, along the curves of light that form no stable shape. But none are blind. You feel that truth as it brushes over you. Not one among them fails to see. And they do not look at you. They read you. not like a page, but like a consequence. Your existence is a question they are answering simply by being present. Their arrival is not arrival at all. It is revelation, as if the world peeled back its surface to show the architecture beneath. And what you see is not unfamiliar. It is intimate, because a part of you has always known what they are. You stand still, not by choice, but by understanding. Movement would be false. These beings require silence, not for reverence, but for clarity. Every flicker of their form contains more than language. You don't hear their communication. You absorb it. Through pores, through marrow, through breath you didn't know you were holding. They speak in alignment. Light bends around them, not because they emit it, but because light recognizes its superior and yields. Shadows warp in directions that defy logic. Space folds and tenses, not torn, disciplined. You feel geometry crack inside your thoughts, replaced by something older than mathematics. This is not miracle. This is structure. They are the blueprint. One of them drifts closer, not toward you, but near enough that you feel its presence wash over your skin, like memory. You don't see its face. You see faces, layered, turning, not expressions, functions. Each one blinking into form, then fading, then returning again, with more context than you can hold. You don't recognize the symbols etched along its limbs, but your spine stiffens at the weight of them. Your body knows. Your blood translates. These are not decorations. They are instructions. And you realize something else, chilling and profound. They were never gone. They have always been here, just beyond the curtain of sense, just outside the threshold of what your biology could withstand. You survived hell. You clawed your way back through fire and ash. But these are not punishers. They are not watchers. They are enforcers of form, and their attention is not a blessing. It is a measurement. They don't speak to you. They don't need to. What matters has already passed between you, in silence, in structure, in the calculus of presence. They do not blink away. They do not vanish. They simply close the distance between themselves and whatever purpose summoned them. And you are left trembling, not in fear, in recognition. You've seen echoes of them in dreams you couldn't remember, in the corners of churches where the air grew too still, in your own reflection, when you looked too long and saw something behind your eyes that wasn't entirely yours. They don't arrive. They reveal. And what they reveal is you. You reach for words, not to speak them aloud. Your throat has forgotten how to shape sound in this place, but to think them, to pin thought to meaning like a nail through cloth. Angel? No. That word feels soft, too round, too soaked in paintings and lullabies. Guardian? Too personal, too benevolent. Warrior? Closer, but still lacking. What stands before you is not a being. It is an outcome. It doesn't move. It repositions, as if time adjusts itself to its will, not the other way around. Wings, if they can be called that, rise and rotate with movements that suggest both wind and silence. They are not feathers. They are blades of direction, carved from the absence of doubt. Every part of it has purpose. Every limb, every circle, every eye that stares without blinking. None are aesthetic. There is no decoration, no flourish, only design. And you are meant to look upon it, not to admire, to comprehend, to accept what small portion your mind can hold before it buckles under the weight of the full shape. You try again to label it, hierarchy, command, architect, but each word crumbles. You realize then that language is not equipped for this kind of seeing. What you behold is not what it is. It's what you're permitted to perceive. And that version alone makes your bones feel translucent. This is not beauty. It is correctness. The kind of correctness that doesn't care if it frightens you. The kind that doesn't require explanation. It is terror that does not apologize. Not because it enjoys your fear, but because your fear is irrelevant. Like the way a glacier doesn't pause for a scream, or the way light doesn't soften itself when entering a cave. You step back, not because you want to, but because every instinct that ever kept a creature alive is firing. Your skin is slick with cold, not from temperature, but from realization. You are not the center here. You never were. You are not the reason this thing has form. You are simply present while it expresses its intent. And yet, it sees you, not as person, not as soul, as variable, as part of the equation. It's been summoned to resolve. You feel your past twitch in its vision, moments long buried, decisions that calcified into regrets. They surface not as memories, but as symptoms. Your life reduced to data, and still, no judgment, only evaluation. It takes one step. The ground doesn't react. It complies. The space between you folds in the middle. Its limbs adjust again, aligning in a configuration that strikes you as holy even as your heart races. Not because of its shape, but because your shape responds. Something in you shifts to meet it. You don't understand what that means. Not yet. But the part of you that came out of hell, still smoking with ash and silence, recognizes this encounter as the next gate. You have crossed through fire and chaos. Now you face the structure that holds it all together. The being doesn't blink. It doesn't breathe. It just waits. And you are left kneeling, with your mouth full of dust and your mind unable to name what you see. Because the truth is this: some things are not meant to be named, only obeyed. They rotate without sound. 4 faces, fixed and shifting, locked in orbit around a center you cannot find. Lion, ox, eagle, man. At first you reach for the comfort of symbolism. You've seen these figures in stained glass and worn scripture, pinned to meanings crafted by soft hands. Strength, labor, vision, reason. The guardians of the gospel. That's what you were taught. But here, in this place where nothing is taught, only revealed, those definitions fall away like ash through fingers. They are not symbols. They are stations, not guardians of scripture, not metaphors for virtue. These are engines of creation, minds of command, that do not blink or judge, but observe. Each face holds a gaze too vast to belong to a creature, too exact to belong to a god. They turn, but not in unison. They rotate as if reading from different angles, and you are what they are reading. Not your body, not even your thoughts. What you are made of. You feel it like heat behind your ribs, like light poured through glass too thin to hold it. The lion's eyes are hunger, not for flesh, but for form. It sees how much of your courage was instinct and how much was theater. It knows the truth of when you ran. It forgives nothing because it was never designed to. The ox's gaze drags across your will, weighing it like grain on a scale that cannot be tampered with. Did you carry burdens that were yours, or ones you stole to feel needed? You try to look away, but there is nowhere to turn that isn't being seen. The eagle is higher than the others, not in position, but in perception. Its vision slices through time itself, watching your actions not in sequence, but as a singular shape. Your entire life becomes one event, measured not by consequence, but by intent. You feel it pluck at your regrets, like strings, not to punish, but to harmonize, to determine if the notes you played in silence match the ones you sang in daylight. Then there is the man. It should be the most familiar, but it is not. It is not a face like yours. It is a mirror without surface. When you look into it, you don't see what you are. You see the outline of what you were meant to be. It watches with expectation, not disappointment, that somehow stings more. You want to close your eyes, to break its gaze, but the gaze is inside you. The faces never speak. They never blink. They do not gesture or shift in expression, because they don't need to. Their knowing is complete. Their presence, unbearable, not because of violence, but because of truth. You kneel, and it isn't humility. It's reflex. An ache from deep within your spirit that recognizes itself being cataloged. You understand now that this isn't judgment. It's alignment. They are not measuring you for reward or punishment. They are checking resonance. Whether what you are still echoes what you were called to be before you were bones, before you were breath. And though they say nothing, you understand what happens to things that do not resonate. They are unmade. You feel the edges of yourself tighten, harden, like glass cooling, not broken, not melted, defined. The four faces are done looking, not because they are finished, because they have seen enough. And as they turn away, the space behind your heart shudders with quiet relief. You are still here. That, for now, is permission enough. But you will never forget the way they looked through you and found no place to hide. They burn, not with fire, but with something deeper, older, ignition that predates flame. You don't feel heat so much as memory, like the bones of your body recalling a time before flesh, when everything moved according to a pulse beyond reason. They spin in silence, these wheels that are not wheels, rotating in configurations, too perfect for machinery, too alive for matter. They do not grind. They do not roll. They orbit, like gravity submitted itself to them. There is no axle, no center, only motion without friction, paths carved not through space but through meaning. They interlock without ever touching, as if each knew the other not as neighbor but as consequence. Their surfaces shimmer, like metal made from time, layered in folds of polished light, and every inch of them, every rim, every inner ring, every curved strand, is covered in eyes. Eyes that do not blink. Eyes that do not search. Eyes that already know what they are looking at. You try to count them, but it is impossible. Not because there are too many, but because they aren't arranged for your understanding. They are watching in all directions, all dimensions, even ones you don't have names for. When you move, the eyes don't follow. They've already seen. And yet, you feel chosen. Not in the way religion promised. Not in the way destiny flatters. This is not invitation. This is inclusion. You are part of the pattern now. Not because you proved yourself worthy, but because you survived long enough to be measured. The wheels do not ask questions. They do not offer blessings. They announce nothing. They decide. They shift again, turning through each other, weaving geometry into breath. Their orbit hums in the air, and the hum becomes tone, not sound, but pressure, a resonance that passes through your teeth, your spine, your soul. It presses your thoughts flat. It smooths your memory. You feel the residue of hell begin to peel away inside you, not because they are healing you, but because it interferes with what they need you to become. You kneel. You don't remember choosing to, but your knees know the posture. The wheels pass before you, not slowing, not accelerating, just constant, just inevitable. For a moment, one eye, larger than the others, rimmed in fire and inked in lines too sharp to be drawn, stares directly into you. And you understand. These are not messengers. These are executors. They are not sent. They are summoned. And when they come, they do not arrive to speak. They arrive to rearrange. They unmake what does not align. They interlock the broken edges of creation. And they do not argue. They rotate until the world fits. And something in you has begun to turn with them. A rhythm sets in your chest. Not a heartbeat, but a rotation. Slow, precise, infinite. The spiral that governs them has taken root in you, and though your face is still your own, the eyes beneath it see differently now. The wheels don't stop, they don't vanish. They simply move on. But you remain, and everything inside you is moving. Because the wheels have turned. And now, so do you. The sound reaches you before the shape does. It doesn't flutter. It doesn't echo. It divides. Each beat of the wings is like a verdict struck from stone. Final, unarguable, without hesitation. The air splits, not with wind, but with force, as though silence itself is being torn into orders. These wings are not appendages. They are declarations, and they do not move to fly. They move to announce war, not against flesh, not against kingdoms or creatures, against dissonance, against everything that resists the order they were formed to uphold. You watch the horizon tremble, not ripple, not sway. Tremble, as if the sky has been caught in the middle of deciding whether it still belongs to itself. And when they rise, the sky does not resist. It obeys. You see them emerge in formations not taught in any flight. They do not ascend. They take up space, like light in the instant before it blinds. Their wings are layered, not in pairs but in sequences, each set folding and unfolding through dimensions your eyes were not born to follow. Some wings stretch wide and burn with veins of molten gold. Others are too sharp to be called feathers, more like blades woven from wind and command. They flap in rhythm, but it's not music. It's strategy. The beat is not to keep pace. It's to enforce it. You feel your lungs seize with each thunderous pulse, like your breath has to wait for permission to exist between the strokes. Every movement they make maps something new in the world. Territory is no longer measured by distance. It is measured by presence. And their presence redraws borders that have existed since the first day of light. You should run, but your legs would break before they disobeyed the rhythm. Even stillness becomes an act of war in their shadow. You can feel the molecules of the air around you rearranging, realigning to the paths set by wings that do not bend, do not err, do not fail. These are not cherubs. They are not messengers wrapped in mercy. They are not comfort. They are enforcement. You see faces beneath the feathers, not singular, not stable. Expressions flicker and vanish, masks of fire and bone. Some weeping, some smiling, some bearing no emotion at all. Each one another weapon, each one calibrated to confront the specific weight of what you carry. Guilt, fear, pride. The faces wear your shame without shame of their own. And you understand. They've worn worse. This is not their first descent. One of them turns mid-flight. No arc, no curve, just immediate direction. Its wings fold once, the world holding its breath. Then it strikes downward. The earth does not shake. It yields. Stone folds, trees kneel, sound dies. You watch it land with no force wasted, every inch of momentum harvested into posture, and the wings do not rest. They remain half spread, humming with potential, like a sword waiting to be unsheathed again. You look into its form, into the flaming lines etched across its frame, and know with a certainty deeper than thought, this is the cost of balance, not peace. Enforcement. And as more rise behind it, darkening the sky with discipline, you feel something in you unravel. Not from fear, but from recognition. You have seen these wings before, not in dreams, in consequences. In every moment you thought went unseen, unjudged, unpunished. You were wrong. They saw. And now, they are here. The fire doesn't flicker. It moves with intent, swirling in rhythms too precise to be wild, too fluid to be forged. It doesn't reach for fuel. It is not hungry. It encircles them like a script still being written, curling up their limbs, trailing behind their wings, threading through the spaces between their many faces. It pulses not with heat, but with message. It is not flame. It is language. You feel it before you see it. A tightening in your chest, a pressure behind your eyes like you're being read from the inside out. When the fire draws closer, you expect pain. Expect to blister, to scream, to be reduced to ash, like all things that meet holy fire in stories. But there is no pain, because pain would be mercy. What you feel is exposure. The fire doesn't touch your skin. It touches what lies beneath. Your thoughts become transparent, your memories projected in flickers of heat and motion. You see them dance in the flames, reassembled not as events but as evidence, a moment of cowardice, a whispered lie. That time you chose silence over truth. They all burn now, not away, but brighter. You are not being punished. You are being presented. The fire moves like breath exhaled by the divine, looping through the air in glyphs you cannot translate, but instinctively recognize. Judgments not yet spoken, but already true. It clings to their forms, never scorching, always illuminating. Each figure, too tall, too symmetrical, too composed, glows with it, as if fire is not something they wield, but something they are. The air around them doesn't warm. It convicts. Your body begins to tremble, not from fear, but from indictment. The kind of guilt that isn't taught but born. It presses into your shoulders, into the back of your throat. You want to speak, to apologize, but the fire is older than your words, and it has already found the measure of you. One of them turns toward you, slow and deliberate. The fire curls tighter around it, forming rings that orbit like sentences not yet spoken. You see your name appear, but not in letters, in heat, in form. Not the name you give others, the true one. The one etched into your spirit like the grooves of a fingerprint. The one you forgot when you stepped out of hell and thought the worst was behind you. This fire does not forgive, because forgiveness would imply you were owed the chance. Instead, it reveals, and you can't look away. In its glow, there is no shadow. There is no place to hide, no excuse to offer. The flames twist and split and rejoin, shaping parables out of the worst parts of you, folding history into prophecy. You are not being destroyed. You are being clarified. And you know it will not stop until every layer has been peeled back, until every secret you buried under reason or trauma or pride has been sifted, sorted, and made visible. The fire speaks in silence, and its silence is louder than thunder. The others watch, their eyes without pity, their fire without warmth. The air around them thrums with order, with finality. This is not about punishment. This is not about redemption. This is the fire that speaks. And it is still speaking. You keep your head low, thinking it might shield you, that if you avoid their eyes, they won't find you fully. They won't press past your surface. But this is not a courtroom. It's not even judgment. It's something far worse. You are not on trial. You are already known. Their gaze finds you even in the places you didn't know you had. You feel it. First like weight on your chest, then like a hand turning your face toward a truth you never volunteered to see. Their eyes do not shine. They reflect. Not the way mirrors do, but the way memory does. You look at them and see yourself. Not the self you protect, the one you forgot to fear. There's no voice, no accusation, just a stillness that dismantles your defenses. You try to focus on anything else, on the geometry of their wings, on the sound the fire makes when it curls around their shoulders, but it all circles back to the eyes. Every path leads there. Every breath is measured beneath their stare. You attempt to shield your thoughts, to tighten your mind like a fist, but it doesn't matter. You're not hiding a flame from the wind. You're hiding ink from water. They read you the moment they looked, and they haven't blinked since. You feel your past swell behind your eyes. Moments you buried, things you justified, names you forgot but never really let go of. A choice you made when no one was watching. A kindness withheld. A truth twisted not with malice, but for convenience. They see it all, even the lie beneath your silence. You try to breathe through it. Tell yourself this is just a vision, just celestial theater, but your body knows better. It remembers things your mind denied. It remembers that gaze from before you were born, from before language, from before escape was something you believed in. This is not some god's wrath. This is origin meeting origin. They do not flinch. They do not respond. They only behold. And in that beholding, you begin to unravel. Not torn, not broken, but undone. Like the pages of your life are being unstacked, read in reverse, their corners smoothed flat. You want to cry out, not from pain, but from recognition. You see yourself in their eyes, and you finally understand what they see. You never fooled them. You were never hidden. Not the first time you lied. Not the first time you turned away from someone who needed you. Not even when you convinced yourself you did the right thing. It's all here, echoed in the gaze that does not move, because it never had to. The mirror doesn't chase your reflection. It waits, and in their waiting, you collapse. Not to your knees, but inward, as though something in you has shrunk, as though space itself has tightened to match your true size. You thought survival was victory, but you weren't meant to survive. You were meant to be seen. And now, you are. You feel it before you see it. A tightening. Not pain, not quite, but tension drawn too finely through your limbs. Your skin doesn't blister, doesn't sweat. It hums. A low vibration that starts in the soles of your feet and rises through the bones of your spine, like a note struck deep inside the marrow, one that never stops ringing. It isn't heat. It isn't fear. It's recognition. Your flesh, this fragile sheath you've always called yours, begins to shift. Not outward, inward, folding on memories it was never meant to hold. It stretches, not with pressure, but with recall, as if it has remembered something you haven't, as if it knows a blueprint your mind was never allowed to read. You reach for your arm, hoping to still the tremor, but your fingers don't meet the texture you remember. It feels unfamiliar, too smooth in some places, too rigid in others, like something ancient is trying to etch its way through the dermis. You clench your hands, hoping to regain control, but even your hands don't feel like yours anymore. You were given this body, but you were never its owner. The figures that surround you do not speak. They do not touch you, but their presence is pressure enough. Your body bends, not in submission, but in compliance. The way iron bends under divine geometry. Your knees give, not from weakness, from reconfiguration, as though gravity itself has shifted, and now kneeling is simply the only possible shape. The skin along your shoulders pulls tight, then looses again. It doesn't split. It sheds. Slivers of dead thought, dead habit, peel away like dust under rain. You catch a glimpse of your reflection in something not made of glass, some polished surface that breathes, and you barely recognize what you see. Not because you look monstrous, because you look true. You have never looked true before. There's something behind your eyes that wasn't there before. Not light, not shadow, purpose. A clarity too vast for the small expressions your face knows how to make. You try to speak, and your voice catches in your throat. Not from fear, but from displacement. The words you reach for are not the words that rise. You are no longer speaking human. You are remembering language. The skin around your ribs pulses, as if something inside is expanding to fill a shape long denied. You feel your spine realign to something ancient, something straight, something ready. Your body was once a question. Now it begins to become an answer. But answers are heavy. You stumble, not from pain, from density, from bearing something too exact to be random. This body, your body, once accidental, once flawed, now begins to carry weight not its own. A design, a role, a destiny you didn't choose and can't return. Because holiness is not gentle. It does not ask permission. And still, the change continues. Skin shifting, like scripture being rewritten. Muscle twisting around unfamiliar function. You want to cry out, not to stop it, but to name it. But no name comes. Because this was never meant to be named. Only fulfilled. And as your form settles, no longer shrinking from itself, no longer pretending to be less, you feel it seal. The understanding, the rewriting, the truth. Your flesh was never yours. It was always an altar. The air is wrong. You try to inhale, slowly, carefully, but it tears on the way in, like breath passing through splinters. It doesn't hurt, not in the way a wound hurts, but in the way something unnatural reshapes what you thought was safe. You were taught air is soft, invisible, passive. But here, it has edges. Every molecule feels engineered. You stop breathing for a moment, thinking maybe if you hold still, it will smooth itself, settle, resume some gentleness it used to have. But even in stillness, the atmosphere scrapes. Not on your skin, on your being. Each breath carves itself into the lining of your throat, like it has an agenda. Even silence is sharp. It buzzes around you like a question that's already been answered, but not for you. The hum is not sound, exactly. It's pressure. It curls around the base of your skull and presses into your thoughts, like a warning written in vibration. You look around for a source, for something, anything that could be making this frequency, this constant cracking. But there is no machine. It's the air itself. It fractures. Not dramatically, not like thunder or explosions, but subtly, thin seams forming in the stillness. They split the horizon like light through broken glass. Tiny fissures that don't bleed, but shimmer. The sky above does not echo, yet something in it reverberates. You take a step, and the air resists. Not as wind, but as tension, stretched too tight, threatening to snap. And it does. Somewhere, to your left, the space itself audibly splits, just for a heartbeat, a sound like metal folding in reverse. You spin toward it, heart pounding, and find nothing but shimmer. No flame, no smoke, just a tear and nothing that heals itself, like it was never torn. But you felt it, and you know it wasn't the last. This place doesn't want you here. Not with rage, not with violence, with certainty. You are an interruption, a ripple in an otherwise exact design. And now the world is correcting. The air breaks, not in protest but in calibration. You are the anomaly. Every breath is a reminder. You taste something bitter, like ozone, like iron, like memory, clinging to the roof of your mouth. You cough, but it doesn't help. The sensation isn't in your lungs. It's deeper. The sharpness wraps around your ribs and tightens as if waiting for you to say something true, something final. The silence leans closer. You realize it's not silent at all. It's watching. The jagged quiet shifts when you move. It studies the angles of your posture. It maps the tremble in your fingers. It doesn't attack, but it doesn't yield. There's no softness here, no cushion, only truth, stripped of comfort. You try to speak, to ask what this is, but your voice catches, caught on something not physical, like your words are too blunt to pass through this sharpened air. Language feels like a clumsy tool, like it would shatter if you forced it. So you stay quiet. The cracks widen. You can't see them all, but you feel them forming. around your feet, near your jawline, in the space behind your eyes, as though this realm is fracturing just to let something in or something out. Either way, you know this isn't just atmosphere. This is intention, and it's closing in. You try to track the seconds, tapping your thumb against your thigh, the same rhythm you've always used to keep steady, but you lose the count almost immediately. It's not distraction, it's disintegration. The shape of time itself is warping, and your body can no longer find the tempo it once trusted. You look to the sky, hoping to gauge the light, but the sun, if it even is a sun, doesn't move. Shadows stretch and retract with no cause. There's no arc, no drift, just flickers. And sometimes, not even that. You blink, and it's brighter. You blink again, and it's dusk. You close your eyes and exhale, slow, deliberate. But halfway through that breath, something shifts. A sound begins, but doesn't end. The space around you folds a little, like a page being turned, but never quite landing. You open your eyes, and nothing is where you remember it being. The ground is still beneath you, but it feels like it arrived there, after you did. You're not walking, but your position has changed. You remember a step, but not the motion. A distant echo in your muscles. The place is the same, and yet everything is off by degrees, as if the entire world has skipped a frame, or two, or more. You reach out to steady yourself, and your arm lags. Not visibly, internally, like thought no longer matches movement, like your will is arriving before your flesh does. You try to speak, to ask the question that's building, but your voice comes too early. The sound is already fading by the time you hear it. The echo precedes the cause. You shut your mouth and feel a rising nausea, but not in your stomach, in your soul. Time isn't broken. It's pausing. And in the pause, you are left without tools. No memory to orient yourself, no duration to soothe. Only the knowledge that things once moved, and now they don't. You walk, or you think you do. You can't tell. The dust doesn't rise from your steps. You don't hear gravel shift. The motion has no trail. You exist, but only in a stillness that wraps around you like a held breath. Nothing ages here, which means nothing lives here. You try to think back. How long since the last word, the last heartbeat, the last true moment? But those concepts crumble when you reach for them. Your memories feel brittle, unanchored. The shape of what was has no contrast against what is. You were taught to measure everything in time. Now you are here, and time has left. At first you think it's punishment. Then you realize it's worse. It's exposure. Without time, you can't hide. Not in routine, not in repetition, not in waiting for things to pass. Here, there is no after. Only now. Always now. A forever still life of your presence, frozen beneath the unblinking eye of whatever watches. You feel your body adjust, like it's trying to align with something outside of time's reach. Bones slow, thoughts quiet, not peace, suspension. You are not becoming anything. You are being held. The world around you doesn't move, because it doesn't have to. You move within it, like a mistake left uncorrected. Time isn't the thing that stopped. You are. It shifts before you realize it's moving. There's no warning, no sound, no ripple of wind or tremble of ground. One moment it is there, monolithic, radiant, fixed beyond your comprehension. And the next it has shifted, not closer, not further, but different. The space it occupies is not just altered, it is rewritten. You don't hear it move, but you feel everything around you adjust. The light bends unnaturally, colors bleeding into one another, hues that have no name sliding over your skin like oil made from thought. The trees, if they were trees, lean without wind. The dust in the air rearranges itself mid-fall, realigning in spirals too perfect to be accidental. You try to step back, but you don't. Your body considers it, but your feet remain planted, not frozen, denied. You were never in control. You just never noticed. The glory pulses, not violently, not dramatically, but with conviction, like a heart that beats not for blood, but for law. It does not seek attention. It assumes it. And the world itself seems to hold its breath as it passes. Rocks still, air calms, even silence hushes. You feel yourself lean forward slightly, not out of curiosity, but gravity. It has changed the rules around you. What was level is now sloped. What was grounded now drifts. The angle of reality tilts to accommodate it. You are not being ignored. You are being tolerated. It does not ask if you want to witness. It shows itself, and in doing so, unmakes the version of you that thought you were ever an observer. You are not watching. You are being shown, and the showing is not gentle. The glory moves again, not with limbs, not with wings, not with form, but with purpose. A slide across dimensions, as if it decides what direction means. You feel the shift behind your teeth, in your knees, along the axis of your breath. Not pain, not bliss, rearrangement. You look down at your hands, half expecting them to have changed, but they haven't, not in shape. In meaning, they feel smaller, not physically, spiritually, like they belong to a creature who misunderstood its place. You weren't invited here. You were allowed. You think about running, not because it would help, but because the instinct remains. But there is no direction to run. The landscape has folded inward, like the pages of a book you never wrote but still belong to. You could flee forever and never escape its reach. It doesn't follow you. It encompasses. The thought that you ever had autonomy feels laughable now. A comforting lie you dressed in the clothes of choice. You weren't steering. You were carried. Your entire journey, every step that led here, was not decision. It was design. The glory does not explain itself. It simply is. It operates in absolutes that don't require your comprehension. And as it shifts again, you finally understand. It does not move through the world. The world moves around it. You gather yourself slowly, palms pressed against ground that pulses faintly beneath your skin, as if the earth itself remembers the footfalls of something older than time. You press harder, thinking that if you can feel solidity, you can reclaim some piece of yourself. But it's not solidity you find, it's pressure. Constant, radiant, not pushing down but pulling in. You are being held. Not in arms, in orbit. You try to lift your head. You manage it for half a breath before your neck folds again. Not because of weakness, but because it isn't allowed. Your muscles obey you, but your body doesn't. You are a puppet caught in a gravity that isn't planetary but divine. Every joint knows it. Every tendon tenses not in resistance but reverence. You try again, this time with a groan, and your knees shift underneath you. They slide, trying to plant themselves, but it's like rising on a floor that constantly deepens beneath your weight. There's no violence to it, no cruelty, just inevitability. You are not being cast down. You are being acknowledged. The collapse comes without drama. No gasp, no scream, no warning. You simply return to the ground. Face first, spine bowed, breath driven from your lungs by something that does not strike, only surrounds. Your arms give out beside you. Your cheek touches dirt. You do not rise again. The dirt is warm, not from sun, from proximity, from something massive and brilliant just out of reach. You cannot look up to find it, but you feel its outline in your bones. It hums in octaves not meant for ears. It thrums in your blood like a forgotten name returning to the surface. Not yours. Theirs. You want to speak. Maybe not to question, just to confess. But your mouth refuses shape. Your tongue stays still. Words are not banned here. They are unnecessary. This is not a place where language lives. This is where language ends. You remember, suddenly, a time in hell when you screamed and it echoed. You were noticed then, if only by your suffering. Here, you don't even have that. Your silence is not empty. It is complete. You are beneath something, not above you physically, but fundamentally. A weight that is not mass. A burden that is not punishment. Sacred gravity. The force of absolute presence. And no part of you can resist it. Not your will, not your breath, not even your guilt. You are a figure carved into the floor of your own revelation. You don't cry. Crying belongs to those who believe someone might answer. You remain still, not because you're forced, but because it's the only correct shape. Face down, body limp, soul open. The posture of truth. It rests in your hands without weight. No texture, no temperature, just presence. You didn't see who gave it to you, if there even was a who. One moment, your palms were empty. The next, they carried a thing that cannot be described, but demands to be consumed. You do not know how you know it's a scroll. It does not look like parchment. It does not unfold. It doesn't even have a beginning, but it carries the shape of understanding. And when you bring it to your lips, you are not guided by hunger. You are obeying. The first bite surprises you, not because it hurts. It doesn't. But because it changes how your mouth works. Your teeth feel ceremonial. Your jaw moves like it's done this before. The flavor isn't flavor, not in the way food is. It strikes in layers, light, salt, grief, honey. A sweetness that weeps into bitterness so fast you can't separate them. You keep chewing. Each bite writes something across your tongue. Not words, events, memories that aren't yours. Names you've never heard whisper across your molars like echoes. Cities burned, kingdoms forgiven, stones that cried out when no one else would. You chew, and it chews back. Something slides behind your eyes, and for a moment, you forget who you are. You taste judgment first. It hits sharp and cold, like the moment before a verdict is spoken. You feel your spine lock, your breath shivers. It is not the kind of judgment that condemns. It is the kind that names. And in the naming, you lose every version of yourself you ever invented. The scroll knows you, and it does not flinch. But then, mercy follows, not as a reward, not as a pardon, as clarity, a warmth that doesn't excuse you, but embraces the broken thing you are. You feel hands you can't see brushing dust from the corners of your mind, a voice with no sound saying, yes, even this. You swallow. It doesn't stop. The scroll isn't consumed like food. It unfolds inside you. You feel it threading through your ribs, curling into your lungs. It hums beneath your heartbeat, a covenant etched into sinew. Every place you ever fractured begins to shine. Not healed, not hidden, but revealed. You are not being fixed. You are being understood. And in that understanding, changed. You feel your skin shift, like it's trying to remember something your soul already knows. Your breath slows, not because you are calm, but because time bends to allow for what you're becoming. There is no ceremony, no trumpet, no declaration. But you know, deep in the marrow of your becoming, you know. You cannot go back, not to hell, not to earth, not to who you were before the scroll touched your tongue. You ate what was offered. You tasted the shape of the holy, and now it lives inside you. They gather in circles, just like the old stories. Linen draped, heads bowed, incense thick in the air. Every movement is practiced. every syllable carved in memory. They chant with eyes half closed, hands raised toward a heaven they haven't seen in years. You step into their midst and feel the weight of memory smothering the present. The temple is not dead, but it is asleep. They welcome you like a pilgrim, with politeness, with distance. They ask where you have been, and you open your mouth to answer. But nothing comes out that fits their language. You say fire, and they hear vision. You say eyes, and they think symbol. You say wings, and they nod as if they understand. But you can see in their faces, they don't. They are reciting maps of places they've never walked. One elder touches your shoulder with soft authority. His fingers tremble with age and devotion, and he speaks the name of God like it's a family heirloom polished over centuries. You flinch, not in fear, but in grief. He doesn't know what he's saying anymore. The name has lost its thunder in his mouth. You want to scream that it still burns, that it still breathes, that it still bends reality when spoken correctly. But your scream has no place here. You sit among them as they retell Ezekiel, quoting verses like charms. They speak of wheels, but they've never seen them spin. They talk of eyes, but theirs never weep. They mention the voice of the Almighty and bow low, but no one listens for it anymore. They hear silence and assume approval. They don't notice how the silence watches. You try to share, not as a teacher, not as a prophet, just as someone who tasted something too large to carry alone. But your words fall like stones into a well with no water. They smile gently and pat your hand. One offers you bread, another, a blessing. They don't mean harm. They don't mean anything. They are afraid of what you've become, and so they pretend nothing's changed. You speak again, louder, desperate now, not for validation, but for warning. The glory hasn't dimmed. It hasn't withdrawn. It was never absent. It's just waiting. And when it moves again, it won't announce itself with verses. It will arrive the way it always has, with fire, with light, with fear that tastes like truth. You plead with them to remember, but they look at you with pity, not awe. They don't know what you've seen. You stare up at the ceiling of the temple. Ornate, majestic, hollow. The gold reflects torchlight, not presence. And for the first time, you feel loneliness that isn't born of isolation, but of dissonance. You are not alone. You are out of tune. The elders return to chanting. One weeps with joy. Another dances. You don't fault them, but you don't join them either. Because somewhere just beyond the veil of incense and memory, you know something is still watching. And it remembers who turned away first. It happens quietly. No thunder, no scream. Just a shift in the marrow of the walls. A hush that moves like breath being held too long. The light still flickers on the golden altar. The smoke still coils upward from censers swung by tired hands. But something has gone. Not fled in fear. Chosen. You don't see it leave with your eyes. Your body knows first. A tightening in your lungs. A hollowness behind your ribs that no inhale can satisfy. The pillars don't tremble, but your knees do. You feel it like a child waking in an empty house where someone once sang, "The song is gone, the silence is too sharp." You look to the others, but they don't notice. They go on bowing, singing, reciting. Movements carved in tradition, polished by generations, untouched by awareness. They speak his name with reverence, but not recognition. They talk about presence without noticing absence. You want to scream, not because you're angry, but because the space is too vast now. The space where he stood, where he burned, where he breathed between the cherubim. The space left behind is not just empty. It is sacred, in reverse. Not darkness, negation. The glory is gone, and something colder than death now watches from the vacancy. You remember when it was here, Not in story, not in metaphor. You remember its weight behind your shoulders, pressing your spine into the earth. You remember the roar of wings that shook thought from your skull. You remember eyes that peeled back your intentions and found you wanting, and still chose to let you live. Now, nothing. Not a punishment, not abandonment, just decision. Whatever was once invited here has rescinded its acceptance. You step outside the temple, hoping it feels different beneath the sky. But even the stars seem dimmer. The air has weight without warmth. The ground no longer sings beneath your feet. The city still breathes behind you, unaware that it has become an orphan. And still they chant. Still, they light their fires, thinking the smoke rises as offering and not apology. Still, they quote visions they no longer see, offering language in place of listening. You want to tell them, but your mouth feels useless now. Not silenced, stripped. What words could replace what is missing? What words could bring him back? You feel the pull behind your chest again, the same force that led you down into fire and through blood. But this time, it does not lead downward. It stretches you forward, away. There's nothing for you here anymore. Not because it is evil, but because it is hollow. You look back once, just once, through the great doors carved with names no longer spoken. You hope you'll see one spark of return, one flicker of eye or wing. You don't. And so you walk, not away from him, but toward wherever he has gone. You feel it before you see it. A low pressure behind your sternum, like the moment before a scream or a sky about to break. The earth tightens, not shakes, tightens, as if the dirt itself has been commanded to hold its breath. Something is coming, not from above, not from below, but from a place direction doesn't reach. The first sound isn't a sound, it's a recognition. Your bones clench, your blood slows, and the skin behind your ears starts to itch. You've never heard thunder like this because thunder has not learned how to speak it yet. It rolls through you, a question that demands reverence before answer. And then the light. Not the gentle flicker of fire, not the sterile shine of stars. This is a light that unfolds, layer by layer, until color forgets what it was. It pulses like breath, but deeper. It doesn't illuminate, it reveals. The creature doesn't rise, it emerges. One moment, the sky is a ceiling. The next, it is parting like a curtain from the inside, not torn, but willingly moved. You do not see wings. You see movement that imitates wings out of mercy for your comprehension. You do not see a face. You see a symmetry so exact, your mind translates it into faces, just to avoid collapse. It doesn't fly. It arrives. It bends forward from the folds of reality, as if it was always there, and only now chooses to be noticed. It stretches wide, not to reach, but to be, and the stretch brings storm. Not water, not wind, the kind of storm that begins with a command. You want to run, but your body is no longer yours. You are upright, not because you're brave, but because gravity is being rewritten around you. The space between your cells hums with recognition. This is not invasion. This is return. The creature does not speak, but the world around it rearranges itself in response. Trees lean, not from breeze, but in worship. Stones hum, not from contact, but from acknowledgement. And somewhere far behind your thoughts, you realize the lightning has not struck because it has not been told it may. The creature is waiting, not for you, for instruction. You try to look away, not because you are afraid, though you are, but because the longer you stare, the more the world you knew starts to fray. Your memories blur. Your name feels thin. You remember your mother's voice, but not her face. You remember laughter, but not its cause. You remember the Inferno, and you feel nostalgic. Because this is not judgment. It is hierarchy. This is the order that preceded creation. This is what angels answer to. This is what Ezekiel saw and could only stammer into metaphor: wheels, eyes, fire. But this is the throne that rides them. And it is not sitting still. It happens in silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that steals air from your lungs before you realize you're holding your breath. One blink too long, and the sky doesn't stretch away anymore. It tilts. Not down, not sideways, but inward, like pages of a book pulled toward the spine. You don't move. The world does. You thought heaven was far, that it hovered above clouds and stars, unreachable and vertical. But that was a child's illusion, a simplification carved into lullabies and ceiling murals. What you're seeing now is not distance, it's depth. The sky doesn't rise. It folds. You don't remember when it started. Maybe it always was. But now your eyes are allowed to see it. The clouds thin like tissue, their white bleeding into colorless light. You reach toward it, just once, without thinking. Your hand passes through the air like normal, but your bones know better. Something passed through you first. It's not like passing through a veil. It's like standing between mirrors, endless reflections spiraling in dimensions not bound to sight. You feel the echo of a presence to your left, but it stands where your shadow should be. You turn. Nothing. Not nothing, just not allowed. The folding continues, but it doesn't ripple. It slices, one seam at a time. Behind the cut sky, more sky. Not blue, not black, not color. Something without contrast, yet alive with awareness. It watches you, but not with pity or threat, just with knowledge. It knows you are seeing it, and that makes you responsible. You stumble, not from fear, but from orientation. Your feet expect ground to behave like ground. Your mind expects up to be up, but up is now sideways, and forward is inside out. The tree to your right leans into the new geometry, branches stretching not toward the sun, but toward obedience. The bark doesn't crack. It complies. You whisper something, though you don't know what. A word, maybe, a plea. It doesn't matter. Your mouth is just trying to keep shape in a place where language frays. Sound stretches as it leaves you, pulled thin by proximity to something more real than time. You aren't dying. You're being unfolded too. And now you see them. Not descending. Not even moving. Revealing. Shapes, if they can be called that. Walk beside the fold. Wings like sentences in languages, never spoken aloud. Faces that do not blink, because blinking implies uncertainty. They do not need doors or ladders or rays of light, because heaven is not elsewhere. It is here, has always been here, just waiting for the right tear in your understanding, just waiting for the right unlearning. The idea that heaven was above was mercy. It gave people a direction to look when they prayed. It gave grief a direction to lift its eyes toward. But the truth is crueler. It was never far, just folded. And now that it's opened, you cannot close it. You feel the change before you see it. A shift beneath the skin, not temperature or gravity, but intention. Foreign, total, final. The light doesn't move, but the shadows around you arrange themselves into new hierarchies. Your breath catches, not in fear, but in recognition. The way a soldier stands straighter when a commander enters the room. Except this is no room, and what enters is no commander. The silence comes first. Not emptiness, judgment. Not waiting for your words, but weighing them before they exist. The ground beneath your feet is smooth now, without texture, as if the place you stand no longer belongs to the world of things. Above, the folds of heaven remain parted, a wound that never bleeds. You look up expecting to see sky. You see mandate. It does not speak. It does not ask. It doesn't need to. The knowing settles into your bones like it's always been there, like your body was born around it and just forgot for a little while. You thought you survived hell. You thought you escaped, but you were not spared. You were selected, not rescued, not forgiven, repurposed. The memories of fire and blood and circles carved from judgment still cling to your soul like soot, but now you understand. They were a corridor, not a prison, a path, not a punishment. Someone, or something, walked you through it, not to see if you would survive, but to see what would be left of you when you did. The task is not explained. Explanation is for mortals. This is appointment. Your hands begin to tremble, not because they fear what they will be asked to carry, but because they already feel the weight of it. Invisible, undeniable, sacred. You try to speak, not to protest. There's nothing in you left that believes in the right to refuse, but to confirm, to ask what it is you are being sent to do, but your mouth stays shut. It knows better. Sound would only embarrass the moment. You are not being released. You are being dispatched. A figure stands before you now, or maybe behind, or maybe within. You don't see it with your eyes. You see it in the pattern of your heartbeat, a presence that vibrates through marrow and nerve, reshaping the way you understand direction. You do not know its name, and you know better than to ask, but it knows yours, has always known it. Not the name you were given, the name you were born from. Your body does not bow. It cannot. There is no ritual sufficient. Instead, your soul opens like a book written in ash, and something reads it aloud without lips. You feel pages turn inside you, memories revisited, choices measured. Every breath you've ever drawn is examined in less than a moment, and then the weight increases. It does not crush. It commands. You do not ask what your mission is. The knowing fills you in reverse, like remembering a dream you were born into. There will be movement. There will be witness. There will be rupture. And in the places you are sent, no one will understand why their bones feel colder when you enter the room. You are not sent to be seen. You are sent to be obeyed, or feared, or both. No door opens. No horn sounds. The world simply shifts. The seam of heaven closes behind you, though not fully. A crack remains, humming like a held breath. And you know the task has only begun. You walk forward, not because you choose to, because you were chosen. It's not carved into your skin. There's no mark, no scroll, no glowing words etched across your vision. And yet you know, with a certainty that eclipses thought, deeper than memory, more constant than heartbeat. The message is not something you carry. It carries you. You did not hear it. It did not arrive in thunder. There were no trumpets, no prophets shouting from mountaintops. It came in the pause between your breaths, in the silence that followed the glory's gaze, in the impossible stillness of sacred fire. It threaded itself into the muscle beneath your ribs, seeped into marrow, dissolved into the rhythm of your lungs. Now it speaks without sound, not in language but in direction. You move without knowing why, until your legs stop, and only then do you realize you've arrived. You do not remember the walk. You only remember the command buried in your blood, like a name you've never spoken but always known. It isn't words. It's architecture. It builds within you. Every moment since you were taken, since the glory shifted and the heavens peeled open, has been forming this message. Not as a thing to deliver, but as a thing to become. The message doesn't ask for you to speak. It requires you to exist. And you do, now, in a way you never have before. You sleep, but it dreams. You blink, and it watches. You try to cry, and it counts your tears with purpose. The sky folds in places where you step, not because you are holy, but because the message is, and it is watching through you. You feel it in your shadow. It doesn't mimic you. It leads. The curve of your spine follows the angle of wings that are not there, but that ache when the wind changes. Your breath, once shallow, now circles before it exits your chest, as if it too must orbit what you carry. People do not see it, but they feel it. In the way their voices falter when you enter a room, in the way silence clings harder to your skin than perfume. Children look too long. Animals back away with eyes wide and limbs tense. Mirrors do not betray you, but they hesitate, as if the reflection they offer is not the one the message recognizes. The message lives behind your eyes now. When you close them, you do not see darkness. You see forms, movement, a wheel turning inside another, a face that never stops shifting, a hand reaching out from within a storm of wings. These images do not frighten you. They recognize you. You have become a vessel, not by agreement, by appointment. There are moments you want to scream, but the message reminds you, gently, cruelly, that your voice is no longer yours. You may speak, but not without consequence. Even your silence means something now, especially your silence. You remember who you were, not often and not clearly, but flashes return like whispers. A name called in joy, a time when a touch meant only touch, not transmission. But those memories dim. The message does not erase you. It overwrites. You are not its author. You are its medium. You do not know who will hear it. You only know they will not forget. You step back onto the soil you once called home, but it doesn't greet you. It shrinks beneath your feet, uncertain, unsure how to bear the weight of what you've become. Trees sway not with the wind, but with hesitation. Roads, once familiar, recoil as if your return is a mistake they cannot correct. The people are still here. Faces you should know, voices you once laughed with, hands that once pulled you from sorrow. But now they blur at the edges. They speak with too much noise and too little meaning. Their joy is thin. Their anger, shallow. Their certainty, dangerous. They don't see it. Not really. They walk beneath a sky that watches, yet they never look up. They talk about time, about days, about the weather, but none of them can feel that the clock is stalling, that reality groans like wood under pressure, that the veil thins and no one notices. You try to speak once. You open your mouth to tell them, to warn them, to plead, but your words feel wrong, not heavy, not false, just too large, like trying to pour the ocean into a cup made of breath. So you close your mouth and let them talk around you. Their eyes pass over you like your furniture, furniture that hums with heat. You are here, but not with them. They know something about you has changed, but they don't want to know what. It's easier to pretend you're tired, sick, mourning. That would be human. They would know how to offer tea or pity. But you're none of those things. You are altered, and they are not ready. So you walk among them like a stranger wearing your old skin. The buildings seem too delicate now. Every brick reminds you of dust. Every doorframe, a gate too narrow for what follows you in shadow. You touch nothing, not out of fear, but reverence. If you let your hands do what they now know how to do, the world might remember what it once was, or what it was supposed to become. There is a child in the street who looks at you too long, not in fear, in knowing. Her eyes narrow not in confusion but recognition. She sees the shape around you. You feel her understanding press against you like a question that hasn't been born yet. Before her mother can tug her away, she speaks one word. Simple, soft, ancient. Angel. You do not nod. You do not smile. But you feel the air contract. And for a moment, so does she. The world feels too small now. not just in size, but in scale. Everything here used to feel so wide, so vast. Love, grief, dreams, time. Now it all seems like paper architecture. Thin enough to tear, fragile enough to forget. You do not belong here. Not because you have outgrown it, but because the world has shrunk away from what you carry. You thought this place would anchor you, that coming home would return something to you, your name, your weight, yourself. But now you see the truth. You are not the one who left. You are the one who was sent back. And nothing built by human hands can hold what followed you through the fire. You close your eyes, but you don't rest. Sleep doesn't come softly anymore. It arrives like a blade pressed to your throat, gentle only in the way it demands surrender. And when it finally takes you, it does not bring dreams, it brings faces. They do not drift in from memory. They do not fade in and out like whispers from a life before. They arrive complete, deliberate, eternal. They look at you not as something broken, but as something bound. Not with rope or oath, but with witness. You remember each one. You wish you didn't. There is the face that was more wing than skin, and yet its eyes bore through you like sunlight through fog. Another had no mouth, but you still heard it scream. Praise, lamentation, command. You never decided which. And another, it was made only of gaze. No body, no voice. Just seeing. They do not blink. They do not look away. Even when you do. They wait at the edges of your thoughts. Behind every breath. Between every word. When you try to laugh, you feel them press closer. When you cry, they do not offer comfort. They do not move at all. But they see. You used to believe that memory faded. That time, like rain, washed away what the soul couldn't carry. But this is not memory. This is placement. They were put into you, poured in, not so you could recall them, but so you could hold them. And you do. You carry them, like an altar carries fire. You are never alone now, even in silence, even in rooms where light does not reach. They are there, waiting for you to remember that forgetting was never an option. Their shapes have twisted how you see others. The faces of friends blur under your gaze. Strangers seem incomplete. You search every cheek, every brow, every human wrinkle for the geometry of the divine. It is not there, and it never will be again, because you have seen too much. You are not haunted. You are kept. They do not punish. They do not soothe. Their presence is neither threat nor blessing. It is instruction. Every blink is a command to remember. Every glance is an echo of that fire that did not burn, but judged. You wonder if they rest when you wake, if they return to their circles and their flight and their orbit. But the truth presses against you every night, every time your body slows and your eyes close. They never leave. They are with you not like ghosts, but like gravity, not like dreams, but like law. Your name may still be yours. Your voice may still be your own, but your gaze is not. Your silence is not. What you've become now belongs to what saw you, what weighed you, what sent you. You are never unsent. And no matter how long you live, no matter how far you walk, no matter how loudly the world around you screams for your attention, you will always return to this truth. The faces are still looking. You thought the fire would be the worst of it. The pain, the screaming, the endless descent into circles of consequence. You thought if you survived hell, there would be peace on the other side. A return, a chance to rebuild what was lost. But now, standing beneath a sky that folds like breath and stares like judgment, you understand. That was never survival. That was preparation. You look back on the path you walked, through ash, through silence, through the wheel and the wing and the voice that was not a voice. Every step was allowed, not earned. You were not tested to see if you were strong. You were carried through to be made ready, not for glory, but for witness. Because what you saw wasn't a vision. It was a warning. They are coming. You feel it in your bones now, humming low like thunder that forgot how to sleep. The pressure in the air isn't weather. It's declaration. You breathe, and your breath tastes like the edge of something about to tear. The angles of buildings don't sit right anymore. Shadows stretch too far. The world is beginning to notice. But it's too late. People speak of revival, of peace, of progress, but their voices sound like children playing drums over the ticking of a bomb. They cannot hear what you hear, the hush behind everything, the stillness that comes not before a storm, but before a return. You watched the wheels turn. You saw the faces that judged without speaking. You felt your flesh tighten beneath the weight of proximity. And you know, now, without doubt or escape, they do not come to ask. They come to reveal. The stars have begun to shift, not in orbit, but in allegiance. Light bends differently at night. Sometimes, when you stand very still, the world feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for the command to unfold. You feel the edges of the message inside you burning brighter, not fading. The scroll you consumed still turns pages when you sleep, and every line whispers the same thing. Soon, you tried to forget. You walked among the living with your eyes lowered. You let them talk, let them laugh, let them pretend. But you cannot unsee the throne. You cannot unhear the wings. You cannot unknow what waits behind the veil of comfort and delay. They are not far. They are beside. The warning was not meant to comfort. It was never about offering time. It was about removing the illusion of safety. And you, marked, changed, unsent, you are the crack in the story. The proof that something holy and unmerciful has turned its gaze back toward the world. You try to speak sometimes. Just once. Just enough to help one person understand. But the words won't leave you. They tremble inside your chest like an earthquake waiting for permission. You are not allowed to soften what's coming. You are not allowed to lie. And the truth is this: they are not waiting for permission. They are waiting for alignment. And when it arrives, when the wheel turns one last time, the world will look up and see that the sky is not sky. It is a door, and it is opening.